I want to share a story about how worship has been looking like for us in this season. So there was a time about like 7 years ago ish where my husband and I, we were very heavily involved in the worship ministry, and we were like, you know, making set lists for the weekend, for the Sunday service. We were, scheduling people to sing and worshiping and serving at the church in the worship ministry was a huge part of what we were doing, alongside with youth ministry and ministering to youth. And then once we had our first daughter, we were still heavily involved. Like, our first daughter was like an absolute dream, because we would just put her in a stroller and she was like the quietest baby, sweetest baby, and we were still able to serve a lot and attend all these like church meetings, and it was really busy time. So I'm sure if you are in ministry right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because it takes every ounce of your energy, especially if you have a job that's like a full-time job and you're doing ministry on top of that. It's very taxing. It's a lot, and if you're blessed enough to be part of a ministry that is your job, that's amazing. But anyway, so we were heavily involved. And then when we had our second baby and we faced some like financial and job like changes, it got like more hard. So we took a sabbatical, and stage worship and being involved in ministry wasn't like a huge part for us, because we really took on this calling of being parents and ministering to our own kids. And I remember I was browsing there's an Instagram account, I think, and one of the quotes, it said, "The greatest stage that you can stand on is the floor of your own home." And that just like, I was just like bawling from that quote, because it was so hard to step away from ministry. It was really hard to like not be involved and, keep doing the worship on stage, and that like, you get used to like serving constantly, and then when you're not and you're just home and you're serving these little humans, it gets a little less purposeful. Like when you're cooking, it doesn't, like for me, it didn't feel as purposeful as leading worship. And when I was putting my kids to sleep and doing the whole bedtime reading, it felt purposeful, but not as purposeful as like doing ministry. And so when I read that quote of like being a minister and being like worshiping in your own home by changing diapers and loving on the kids and disciplining them and making them food, is actually so valuable in the kingdom, because the whole society depends on parents who are there for their kids. And so that was like a huge breakthrough moment for me, just knowing that like, wow, what I was doing in the home, even though I wasn't serving and doing my favorite ministry on stage and at church, it was a huge thing, and it was very purpose filled. And so then we had our third girl. We had 3 girls, and so after the third girl, it got even more busy. Okay, so if you have 3 kids, I feel like that third child transition is, you're outnumbered. I think that transition is probably like hardest as far as I've heard, because it used to be that your husband can deal with one child and you can deal with the other one, and now you're outnumbered. It's a little more, I think at first it felt a little chaotic for me, but so now we were dealing with school age. Like our first started going to school. She started kindergarten, first grade, and we actually moved cross country to the state of Florida, which was a really, really big deal for us. Is awesome. And living here, serving our family, and we started realizing that homeschooling was something that we wanted to do. However, our kids are so social. We couldn't, like, we did try homeschooling for like 2 years. And during those entire 2 years, it felt like a full-time job for me, not just because I was teaching, but because my kids kept asking, like, can we go to the park? Can we go to a friend's house? Can you invite our cousins? And all their cousins, all their friends were in school. And so I had to like go an extra like mile just to like organize play dates every week, you know, do all these like planning for them to like socially be happy. And so what it kind of brings me to the main point of this video kind of is that in this season we actually felt called to open a small hybrid Christian school, you can call it. It's basically a small community of very like-minded families who bring their kids, and it's a drop-off program. So they drop off the kids, and yeah, that was what we felt called to. And I remember driving past this beautiful church building that's 4 minutes from our house and thinking, like, my heart would just start beating, like, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. Like, the green grass, they had a playground, they have 3 buildings on this campus. And I remember thinking, like, I can't believe nobody's using this during the day. I can't believe it's all empty. I can't believe this. And the more I started, you know, driving past it, I just had this overwhelming feeling. And if you've ever felt the Lord leading you to something or calling you to something, I'm sure you felt this feeling of like your heart beating, where you know that that the Holy Spirit is guiding you to something. And so that's exactly how it felt regarding this building. And so in this season, that's what we felt called to. So like, what I'm learning throughout this, you know, journey of ministering to people and worship and piano and singing is that your worship will look so different in every season. So, you know, for us, like, we were, you know, serving youth, and we were serving on stage, and we were a huge part of the ministry, and then going more into like focusing on family and kids, and now working on like serving our community with godly biblical worldview shaping from a young age in the form of a school is also a form of worship. And so it's been such an amazing thing to look at, like, wow, it really isn't, you know, worship isn't just singing, and worship is like this beautiful lifestyle where you're saying yes to the Lord and His calling. And if you want more detail about how the actual school happened, like how did we go through the process of opening it, let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely answer those questions if that's interesting. If not, thanks for tuning in and hearing our story. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.